Hello and welcome to this video. Today, I'll be drawing a picturesque street in Larnaca, located right next to the medieval fortress. Join me as I bring this charming scene to life with watercolor. The first step is to lightly sketch the composition with a pencil. The perspective of the street is crucial, so I carefully align the lines to create depth and dimension in the drawing. Once the initial sketch is complete, I refine the details using a fine black ink pen. This technique helps emphasize the textures of the buildings, the roughness of the stone walls, and intricate details such as old street lamps and cafe awnings. For shading, I use hatching and stippling to subtly convey light and shadow effects. To start, I secure the edges of my paper using painter's tape. This will create a clean, crisp border around the artwork once the painting is complete, giving it a natural frame. In drawing, the goal is not to capture every detail with absolute precision. This is art, not a photographic replica. What truly matters is emphasizing what stood out to you the most at the location, what first caught your attention. This unique perspective is what makes your artwork personal and distinctive. When I draw a scene, I always look for the element that struck me first. Perhaps an interesting shadow on a wall, a beautifully detailed architectural feature, a cozy terrace, or simply the way the light and colors play on the street. From there, I build my composition around that focal point. The key to expressive art is selective detailing. You don't need to meticulously render every brick, window frame, or cobblestone. Instead, focus on the details that are most important in conveying the mood or story of the scene. For example, if I'm painting a cobblestone street, I might add more definition to the foreground stones while simplifying the ones in the background, naturally guiding the viewer's eye through the composition. Another important artistic tool is stylized simplification. Distant buildings and background elements don't need to be fully defined. Sometimes just a few delicate lines or blurred color patches are enough to suggest their presence. This not only makes the composition more dynamic and engaging, but also helps create a sense of depth. Personal perspective and individual expression are what truly make an artwork stand out. If we always focus on what captivated us most, our art becomes more authentic and meaningful. A great drawing or painting isn't memorable because it's perfectly detailed. It's memorable because it conveys a feeling, an atmosphere, and the artist's emotions. So don't be afraid to leave out unnecessary details and highlight what truly matters to you. This way, your artwork won't just be a copy of a location, but a personal artistic impression of a moment and an experience. In the final phase, it's time for the watercolor. I start with light washes, gradually building up the colors. First, I define the street's main color tones, usually 2 dominant hues, and work within that palette. To avoid harsh contrasts, I ensure that every subsequent color is mixed from these base tones, creating a sense of color harmony. This technique ensures that the final result feels cohesive rather than resembling a rainbow of scattered colors. The harmony of colors and the charm of the cobblestone street inspired me to use this scene as a way to share some of my watercolor techniques with you. The streets of Larnaca don't just preserve the marks of history, they also showcase a unique interplay of colors and light that shifts with every time of day. In the early morning, the buildings glow in soft pastel shades, with golden sunlight illuminating the limestone walls, while long shadows add cool blue and violet tones to the cobblestones. By midday, the colors become more vibrant, with the sea reflecting off the white facades, filling the scene with warm, dynamic hues. As evening falls, the cobbled streets take on deeper tones, with streetlights casting a gentle orange and reddish glow on the buildings, while the distant sea gradually darkens. Capturing these subtle color transitions in watercolor requires a combination of techniques. One of my favorites is the wet-on-wet method, which allows colors to blend naturally, creating soft transitions between light and shadow on the walls. I use this technique particularly when warm tones from the stone walls fade into cooler shadow areas, achieving a natural and realistic effect. Another key technique is glazing, or layering, which helps add depth to the composition. For example, I paint the cobblestones in multiple thin, transparent layers, allowing the different tones to build up gradually and create a realistic texture. I start with a light, warm base, and then layer darker shades to bring out the contrast and shadows. The dry brush technique is perfect for highlighting the texture of stone surfaces and aged wooden doors. By dragging a nearly dry brush across the paper, I create delicate, uneven strokes that mimic the weathered, time-worn look of these historic streets. In my composition, I aim to guide the viewer's eye through the cobblestone street, leading them into the scene. With the careful use of colors and perspective, I want to evoke the feeling of actually walking through this historic alley, noticing the play of light, the tiny details, and the serene atmosphere. Next, I deepen the shadows and add contrast to bring the scene to life. Watercolor has a unique quality of blending and flowing naturally, so controlling the amount of water is essential. I allow the paint to spread freely in some areas, giving the artwork an organic, natural feel that complements the charm of these historic streets. Walking through these streets, you can feel the echoes of the past. Aged stone walls, weathered doors, and balconies draped in greenery all tell their own stories. My goal is to capture this atmosphere and create a vibrant cityscape that transports us to this historic location. Shading is one of the most crucial aspects of creating depth and realism in any artwork. Properly applied shadows not only ground the objects in your composition, but also help define their form and relationship to the light source. Beyond just darkening an area, shadows add mood and dimension, making your drawing or painting feel more dynamic and alive. A key technique to achieve natural-looking shadows is to mix the shadow color from the base tones of the object or building it falls upon. For example, if the building is painted in warm beige tones, the shadow should incorporate that same warmth, muted with a hint of complementary color, to create a soft, harmonious transition. This approach ensures that the shadow integrates seamlessly into the composition, rather than feeling like a separate or harsh addition. When working with watercolors, I typically begin by observing the light source and determining the direction and intensity of the shadows. I then mix a slightly darker and cooler version of the building's primary color, often adding touches of blue, gray, or even a complementary tone like purple, depending on the scene's lighting and mood. This subtle blending creates shadows that feel natural and connected to the environment. For softer shadows, I use a wet-on-wet technique to allow the edges to fade gently into the surroundings. For more defined shadows, I wait for the base layer to dry before applying a slightly darker glaze, building up the tone gradually. By ensuring that shadows share a tonal relationship with the objects they accompany, the composition gains a sense of cohesion and realism. This method not only enhances the visual harmony of the piece, but also allows the play of light and shadow to tell its own story, bringing the entire scene to life. When I finish coloring, I step back and look at the drawing from a distance to see it as a whole. This helps me notice if any detail is distracting from the street. When the overall atmosphere of the drawing is complete, it's time to refine the details that are closer to me, such as the terrace railing. These foreground elements require more precision and definition, as they naturally draw the viewer's attention. In contrast, the details in the background should be rendered more loosely and stylized, rather than fully defined. This selective approach not only keeps the focus on the main subject, but also enhances the sense of depth and perspective, making the scene feel more natural and visually engaging. Larnaca's streets have always held a special place in my heart. Whenever I get the chance, I travel to Cyprus to experience the enchanting atmosphere of this beautiful coastal city once again. Every time I walk through its narrow cobblestone streets, I feel as if I've stepped into another era. The old stone walls, the worn yet elegant wooden doors, and the wrought iron balconies all seem to whisper stories from the past. I especially love the small cafes bathed in Mediterranean sunlight, where people sit leisurely with a cup of coffee or a refreshing glass of lemonade. The scents are just as mesmerizing. The salty sea breeze blending with the aroma of freshly baked pastries and the sweet fragrance of orange blossoms. The most magical moments for me always come at sunset, when the sky fades from soft pink to deep orange. During this time, the historic buildings take on a warm glow, and as I stroll through the streets, every scene feels like a painting. The proximity of the sea, the peaceful atmosphere, and the timeless charm of the city always captivate me. Larnaca is not just a place on the map, it's an experience, a feeling, a piece of serenity. And every time I leave, I already know that I'll be coming back. As the painting nears completion, the Larnaca street truly comes to life, almost as if we've paused for a moment to admire this historic place. Thank you for joining me on this creative journey. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like and subscribe for more drawing content.